Hello, everyone. From these videos, probably you get an idea what kind of work Viva does. Welcome, everyone, to Viva. Are you ready for college event? My name is Narayana Rekapalli. I am one of many volunteers of Viva. Hope you enjoyed yesterday's program. Those kids were really amazing, isn't it? In this session, we are going to concentrate mainly about merit scholarships, financial aid, and how to plan for college savings. If you have any questions, please post it in the Q&A, not in the chat, and wait until the presentation is over, as many questions could be answered in the presentation itself. And there were many questions about the program recordings, and we will release them at some point of time. Viva Youth interns are working on building the site to house these recordings from the last 5 years. Mr. Venkat Bonda is a personal finance mentor and advocate. He is passionate about educating families on personal finance planning, college savings, tax strategies, and risk management. With that, let's welcome Mr. Venkat.
Okay, thank you, Narayan Garu. Actually, it was an excellent introduction to the work that Viva is doing on a daily basis, and I admire the vision of the leadership of Viva. So let's get started. Ladies and gentlemen, hope all of you are doing well this morning, and welcome to this session. I thank Viva for giving me the opportunity to share my knowledge and experience here. I hope all of you are taking some notes. Yesterday we had some excellent sessions, both from Ms. Diane and from Ms. Nancy. And of course, okay, the student panel, a lot of information sharing. And the intent today is not to repeat any of that stuff, right? So before we do that, let me just make sure that I'm able to share my screen here.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So the topic for today is Introduction to Scholarships, Financial Aid, College Financial Planning. Okay, I'll share a lot of information, and towards the end, we are going to get one of the students who will be sharing some of her personal experiences, right? So with that, let me get started. And as Narayan Garu was mentioning earlier, the session is being recorded. It will be shared with everybody. But please be aware that the slide deck will not be shared. Okay, so if you want to take notes, please do. And okay, there are several slides in this presentation that are more statistics and facts. Okay, just to help present the information and to help parents and students relate to the information. Okay, so most of that information is from public domain. Okay, it's not something that I personally have done the research on. Okay. So with that, I'm going to ask that most all the attendees mute their phones or their speakers so that we don't get echo or any distractions, right? So the agenda for today is fairly brief. Okay, what we'll do is I'll just introduce myself and then we'll go through a couple of key things. One is understanding higher education cost. The second thing is understanding grants, scholarships, financial aid, and so on. And after that, we'll talk about some strategies to maximize financial aid, because it's not black or white. It's not just one path to secure financial aid. So I'll navigate through what information I have, and hopefully that will help you get a better understanding of how to optimize your financial aid, how to save and invest the money that you are putting away for kids' education. And then the last thing is different saving solutions for higher education. I'm assuming that we should be able to complete this in about an hour, maybe a few minutes longer, but then right after that, we will follow it up with a question and answer session. And just a quick this session is meant to be an introduction to the subject, and it's not meant to be exhaustive, okay? So a quick disclaimer here, okay? Reliance on this information provided by our group, okay, others joining the group at the invitation of VIBA or other guests on this presentation is solely at your risk, okay? So basically we are not professionals, we are not selling anything here, okay? It's just a free knowledge sharing session. So VIBA or our teams are not liable for any damages or consequences arising from the participation in this event, okay? So a quick background about me. I live in Oakland, Michigan. I've been in the US for over 30 years, and currently I work as a supply chain professional in the automotive industry. And in addition to my professional career, okay, I take pride in actually helping families with financial planning, wealth management, okay, and tax planning advocate. And I also help people in several areas of personal financial planning, okay? So, and most of the time it's to help them better understand about all the options they have and make the right choices, okay? So yesterday, there was a lot of discussion on why college, how to optimize the your process of getting into college, how to make sure it's efficient and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to go through any of those steps on college planning. So what I'm going to be talking through today is understanding cost of education, okay? Basically, there's a lot to know about there. Next thing is seeking and applying for grants and scholarships. Understanding, planning, and navigating the financial aid process. Optimizing financial aid, planning well ahead at least 2 calendar years prior to start of school. Okay, basically, because you'll understand by the end of this presentation why that is important. Identifying work study opportunities that fit your schedule and seeking funding sources to address gaps in the cost. Right. So with that, okay, I'm just going to go through fairly quick with some information slides here. A key insight is, okay, 316% increase in student loan debt since 2005. Okay, there are several reasons for it, okay? While a good portion of it may be need-based, there may be also some strategies involved with actually taking debt, okay, which you will see towards the end of this presentation. Actually, for those of you that I have interacted with in the past on financial aid or student education planning, okay, please be aware that towards the end of the presentation, there is some new information that I'm going to be sharing today, okay. 98% of college families, right? 98% of the families get more money when they plan for it properly, okay. So the next thing is about, is it worth it? Yes, because college graduates on higher income and a degree typically pays for itself by age 30. Okay, yes, there is a cost involved, there is a process involved, but just be aware. Right? The next thing is college graduates enjoy much better job security and opportunity, especially during economic downturns. Only 1 in 4 college graduates lost jobs during the COVID-19 this thing, right? So that's actually one of the major reasons why one should think about it, right? In terms of, starting salaries, okay, yes, all the students have a choice of what path of curriculum they want to seek and follow. This kind of just gives you an introduction of what to expect in terms of starting salaries, okay? Don't make your decisions based purely on salaries, but it's always good information to have. Okay. This is again a little bit information on inflation of tuition cost. Okay, as you can see, this is over a 38-year window. They've collected statistics, and the cost of college education has increased 822%. Or rather than saying cost of education, let me correct myself. It's the tuition costs that have increased significantly. Okay, this averages to about 5.5 to 6% annually. Okay, but net is it's very, very big. So it's important to be aware and plan for it. So understanding higher education costs, let's go through it a little bit. Okay, for a 4-year degree, I'm just going to use the example of somebody who's ready to go to college right now, okay, or who's starting in this fall. So typically age 18, okay, when they graduate from high school, maybe a couple years plus, okay. And the purple bar here represents the cost of 4 years of college if the student is planning on going to a public school. And the blue bar represents the total cost for 4 years if the student is planning on going to a private school. Okay. While this is good information to have, don't get bogged down. Okay, basically, because while these numbers seem so big, there's a large portion of this of the cost of education, which actually people get some support either through scholarships or financial aid or student loans and so on and so forth. That's the whole purpose of today's conversation. And the audience today, I know most of us are not just planning on stopping with a 4-year degree. Most of the students on this call are likely going to pursue either a master's program or a professional program. And these costs that you see on this chart, okay, you may want to either multiply it by 1.5x if you are planning on a master's program, and 2x if you are planning on a professional degree, because it's an 8-year program, most of them are, okay. And one thing you need to be aware is the average inflation cost. It's about 5.5%. This is just an example of cost of education, okay? And I will actually explain this a little bit in detail towards the end. But at a high level, if you want to look at this, this is about a student whose profile, who's currently 10 years old, who wants to eventually pursue med school. And the cost of education that they want to plan for is about $715,000, okay? And to be able to support their education, okay, without any additional funding or source or financial aid, they would have to save about $29,000 a year, okay, until they're done with education. Okay, so their total contribution is going to be about $450,000, and there are ways to reduce this, but just to give you an indication, right? So there are a few ways to actually optimize your total college cost. One common way, which is not very common within our community, is to students choose to live at home and attend community college for their freshman year and sophomore year. And then what they do is right after, they will just transfer to a 4-year college. If a student pursues that path, typically they can expect to save about 39% of the cost, right? And there are other ways to really reduce your total cost. Okay, one is to take AP courses in high school. Then attending, of course, we just talked about attending 2-year this thing. And then ROTC or military academies, they do offer a lot of help. Then study abroad is not a bad option. Okay, there are people who have actually benefited from that because there are several countries where the cost is either significantly lower or they're even free. Okay, and then the last but not the least is work-study colleges. There are some colleges which take pride in that, right? So these are all different options to just save the total cost upfront. This is an example, okay, of cost of attendance. You're going to hear that quite a bit where, in terms of cost of attendance. One thing you want to be familiar with is whenever a student is planning on attending college, if the university, okay, or if the school is a state-funded school, then you're going to see 2 sets of cost. One is in-state and the second one is out-of-state. So in-state, is for students who live in the state and who have graduated from high school from the state and who have contributed to the tax system in the state. Okay, out of state is typically for people who are coming from outside. Okay, most private schools will not have this discrimination between in-state and out of state. They'll have one prices, right? And there are some regional efficiencies where, you know, there are states that have pulled together to say that, okay, if students cross borders between our states, then we'll still honor each other's in-state fees and so on. Okay, and there are so many variants of in-state fees, but one should be aware that there are differences between in-state and out of state. And the other thing one should be aware is every university has what is called as a net price calculator. I'll show you a quick demo in a minute. And what you can do is when you are in the net price calculator, you can look at how what the costs are and how your current situation is going to impact the overall cost. Once you find an optimal solution, what you can do is you can save it to your College Board account, and you can actually link that to your college applications at some point in time. So I'm just going to show you a quick info here. Give me 1 minute. Okay, so this website, okay, oops. Okay, so this website will give you a list. Actually, pretty much all universities are required to load up some information here, right? So I'm just showing you the example from the previous screen, University of Michigan. As you can see, you have an overview, admission, and the cost. The cost will give you actually all the relevant information of in-state, out of state, and so on. Okay, so this is it's a fairly good resource. The next one is about net price calculator. So I'm just going to University of Michigan, but you can look it up for any university. And once you get started, it'll ask you for some basic information. And as you complete that, it'll give you a lot of information, okay, that tells you about the total cost of attending the school. Okay, so with that said, okay, let me, okay. Okay. So in terms of cost of attendance, I think I just gave you an indication of what to expect from a cost of attendance point of view. The cost is a very, very wide spectrum. As you can see, okay, the most affordable four-year colleges, okay, this website will give you a lot of, and every time I'm referencing a website, it's typically listed at the bottom of the slide. Okay, so you can look it up there. And the most affordable four-year college in each state. Okay, this website gives a very good okay, set of information. As you can see, the net price is as low as $2,000 a year. Okay, and these are not small universities, 20,000, 30,000 students in the university, right? On the other end of the spectrum, you will see that these are some of the most expensive colleges. Okay, most expensive colleges in the United States, 2020, 2021. Scripps College tops the list. And as you can see, while their published costs are $77,000, okay, that is before aid. After aid, average cost of attendance is about $33,000. Now that we have a good indication of how the costs, what the costs could be, right? Let's talk through two key aspects of today's presentation, okay, which is scholarships and financial aid. First and the foremost, scholarships. Scholarships are nothing but money that is granted to the student purely based on the student's achievement or abilities. Okay, nothing to do with the parent here. So for all the students who are on the call, okay, if you want to just take a lot of notes and pay attention for the next, I would say, 10, 15 minutes, if anything. Okay, this is all focused to you because it will help you understand what you may want to do to optimize the scholarships. Okay, and Financial aid is to do more with the family situation. Okay, it's all about the family's financial profile and so on. PSAT is an extremely important of merit-based scholarships. Okay, of course, I will be talking a little bit about National Merit Scholarship, and there are so many others. Okay, but a prerequisite for several scholarships is PSAT. So practice and take sample SAT exams before your PSAT, because the PSAT exam that matters for your scholarships, you only get a chance to take that exam once. Okay, so now paying for college. Okay, most of the parents, okay, we have a certain expectation or this thing, but while we plan and expect certain things, the real outcomes are very different. Okay, majority of the time about okay, and the typical family pays more than expected for college from their own pocket. 15% less free money. Okay, so typically we plan or we expect about 40% of the total cost to come from grants and scholarships, but majority of the cases it ends up being about 26%. Okay, and the families out-of-pocket expenses are typically about 15% higher. Scholarship is an award of financial aid to a student. Okay, and as you can see, it could be due to various reasons. Scholarships are awards based on various criteria such as merit, diversity, inclusion, athletic skill, financial need, and many other things, right? So while scholarship recipients are not required to repay scholarships, that's the key word here, you are not required to repay it. The awards may require that the recipients continue to meet certain requirements during the period of support, such as maintaining a minimum grade point average, or engaging in certain activity like playing on a school sports team, or being a part of a certain organization and so on, or helping with some teaching assistant roles. Okay. But the key takeaway from this slide is scholarships do not need to be repaid. There are several kinds of scholarships. Okay, merit-based, student-specific, okay, career-specific, college-specific, athletic-based, okay, brand scholarships, creative contest scholarships. There are some that are based on student disabilities. Okay, there is one kind called last dollar scholarships. Last dollar scholarships are typically, you don't have to include them while you are calculating your financial aid need. Okay, then where do you look for scholarships? You can look for scholarships, at many places. Okay, most commonly ones are listed here. Okay. Again, when you're looking for scholarships, don't miss out on the college and the university that you're applying to. Private companies offer scholarships, and most of these scholarships will require a PSAT score, right? Nonprofit organizations, local businesses, and so on. And there are also so many monetized platforms out there which do help out with information. But I personally have not used any of them, so I will not be able to endorse any of those. But this is just a listing of what's available. Now let's talk a little bit about National Merit Scholarships. All school students, okay, all high school students get a chance to take the PSAT exam, okay, in their 11th grade. Schools take pride when their student actually qualifies in one of the higher levels of the National Merit Scholarship, whether they're a winner or even if they're a finalist, right? But there's a process for it, okay, but it's a very well recognized, and the good thing is every student has the eligibility to take the PSAT exam, right? So there is no specific criteria, but it's purely performance based. Steps to becoming a National Merit Scholar. Okay, I think the last two are important here. Okay, to become a finalist out of the total pool of students who take the exam, about 15,000 are named as finalists, and they will inform, okay, the National Merit Scholarship will, National Merit Organization will inform the top 2 colleges in your application process of you being a finalist. So that is important and it helps. Okay. The other one is about merit scholars. Okay. And those are the finalists, right? So out of the finalists, they pick about half of them who become merit scholars. A few facts about athletic scholarship. Athletic scholarship usually cover only a small portion of the cost. Okay. And there are only about 1 to 2% of students who end up getting athletic scholarships. Okay. If a student, okay, this is an important thing. If a student has been saving up or if a family has been saving up in a 529 account, if the student earns scholarships, families can either transfer unused 529 assets to another family member, or they can withdraw an amount equal to the scholarship without paying the 10% penalty. Okay, so we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Some of the notable scholarships, again, this is a broad list. You can look at it, and some of the very common ones are the Fulbright scholar. Popular ones are Fulbright and Rhodes Scholarship. These are very, very recognized. Okay, and there are several websites that do share information about what scholarships are available out there. Okay, I'm just going to go through a short demo of one of these websites, okay, where they do a fairly decent job of sharing where you can get full rights. Okay, let me just do that. So the website that I'm looking at is Prep Scholar, okay. Please don't look at this as an endorsement. It is just that, of the different websites, I'm just using one of them for demonstration purposes. And as you can go down, okay, you will see for every university, okay, what they've done is they've listed actually all the different scholarships that the university offers. So you can actually go through that hyperlink and then navigate the system and understand details about the program and what the requirements are, what are the deadlines are. Okay, and there's a lot of information, but the good thing with sites like this is all the information is kind of consolidated in one location. Okay, you can just go into one of them if you wish. Okay, so University of Chicago STEM Scholars. Okay, you'll see they talk about the whole program and what it takes and so on, and you can navigate through the system to better understand all the details of the program. Okay, so now going back to our presentation. Okay, need-based financial aid. So now we have talked about scholarships quite a bit, right? So now let's talk about need-based financial scholarship. So first and the foremost is need-based financial aid is also, actually it's got three portions to it. One portion of it is free money. Okay, these are called grants. Okay, the next one is loans. Okay, any loans, okay, all loans are either subsidized or non-subsidized or unsubsidized. And these loans need to be paid back. Okay, that's the second category. And the third one is where the student, exchanges time for money, where what they're doing is they're going through a work study program, and you need to give some time to the university for different activities, and in exchange they will compensate you for that. And if they're giving you cash compensation, then it is taxable. Okay, so socioeconomic background is the key factor for financial aid. Okay. So as you can see, the financial aid, okay, while the college costs have been going up significantly over the years, the amount of money that is available for financial aid has not been. In fact, it's been fairly flat, or I would say it's even reducing slightly. Okay, 90% of colleges are expecting an increase in financial aid appeals right now due to COVID. Okay, so it's okay to appeal and see if there is any way to improve the financial aid that a student is awarded. So now let's look through how the financial aid need is calculated. Okay, we already talked about the cost of attendance, right? There is a different stages of cost of attendance. One is before you go to college, you're taking tests, and there's a cost for applications, trips to schools, and so on. And then once you start attending college, the biggest costs are tuition and fees. The second biggest cost would be room and board. And to that, you can add the cost of books, supplies, personal expenses, technology expenses. That is actually becoming more off late. Laptops, cell phones, internet service, blah, 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 right? Then out of the cost of attendance, that is something that we really don't get to negotiate much, okay? And out of the cost of attendance, what we do is we deduct any scholarships that the student gets. Once we deduct all the scholarships that the student gets, okay, the next step is to calculate how much the family is supposed to contribute, okay? So the family contribution, expected family contribution, you're going to hear this, these three terms repeatedly today: cost of attendance, expected family contribution, or EFC, and the demonstrated financial need, DFN. Okay, these three are, if there's anything that you want to take away from today's presentation, it would be at a minimum these three acronyms, right? So the EFC is something that is calculated by the system, okay? And of course, it's an interactive system where we have to upload information, and then it will do that. I'll show you a demo in a minute. Once you do that, it actually, after the system calculates the family's contribution, the difference between the cost of attendance and the family's contribution is what is called demonstrated financial need. Okay. So demonstrated financial need is a minimum requirement before you can apply for financial aid. Okay. So the money that you get could be free money, which is in grants, scholarships, tax credits, tax deductions, and so on. Or it could also be, loans and so on, right? But basically, the whole purpose of this, process is to understand expected family contribution and to optimize your demonstrated financial need. And then there are a few things that happen after you graduate from college. Okay, those would be loan repayment, managing the interests and the fees associated with your loans. Okay. So with that said, there are two kinds of universities: need blind and need based. Okay, need blind, typically, your financial resources are not taken into consideration. Okay, and need based, it is an important factor. So many of the elite schools, okay, they have huge endowments. So what happens is most of the elite private schools will cover your entire DFN. Okay, so if a family income is less than $65,000, then typically they get everything. They'll get a full ride: tuition, fees, books, housing, meals, everything. If the family's income is between 65 and 125,000, then you can expect typically your tuition, fees, and books, and the family takes care of the housing and meals. If the family's income is about 125 to 200, then majority of the time you'll get a prorated, tuition and fees, and housing will be something that you would have to pay yourself. So accomplished low-income students are better off applying to elite private schools than public schools and universities, okay, because of this process where they will give you pretty much the entire defined financial need. And one more thing that you want to keep in mind is, is that there is a website called QuestBridge, which is actually a fairly good resource for people who are in the need-based category. Okay. So the process to apply for financial aid, there is actually two different processes. One is called the FAFSA and the other one is called CSS. I'll talk a little bit about each of these. FAFSA is nothing but free application for federal student aid. It's actually a federal program. CSS is actually a private program offered by the College Board. Okay. And the FAFSA, pretty much every student who wants to seek financial aid needs to complete it. However, there are only about 400 universities that require the CSS profile to be completed. The CSS profile is fairly invasive, but the good thing is all the universities that endorse CSS, okay, they give out a lot more money than a standard FAFSA form. So if there is an important slide out of today's presentation, I would say it's this, okay, because what this does is it helps you understand how the expected family contribution is calculated. There are 4 components to expected family contribution. The largest one is about the student income. If a student has worked in the previous 2 years, and if the income is more than $7,000, 50% of that income is counted towards EFC. Okay, that's the first one. The next one is if we as parents continue to save money on the student's name, it can be in a UGMA account, UTMA account, Coverdell account. In those cases, whatever money is in their accounts, okay, is counted as an asset. And 20% of that money or their balance is considered towards EFC for that year. Okay, so those are pretty significant impacts. So if you are in the midst of planning on opening an account for your child, okay, this is one thing to keep in mind on whether you're better off saving on your own name or on the kid's name. Okay. The next thing is about parent assets. Parent assets, whatever you have in what is called as an includable asset list, I'll show you the list in a minute. Okay, there's a 5.65% impact or a 6.4% impact. Okay, and this does include 529 plans. If you own a 529 plan, though the growth, you do not have to pay taxes when you withdraw the money. The balance that you have in a 529 account has a 5.65% impact on the financial aid. Okay, that is because the expected family contribution is impacted. The next thing is about income. Okay, it's actually a graded line depending on what your adjusted gross income is. It can be anywhere between 22 and 47%. How do they calculate? So what they do is the FAFSA form requires you to fill in a lot of questions. I think there's about 100 questions that you have to fill in. And then what they do is they try in those 100 questions, there is in the questions that talk to you about what your current balances are in some of these categories. Okay, it will include all your checking and savings accounts, your stock and mutual fund accounts or brokerage accounts, any trust funds, 529 and Coverdell accounts. And if anybody has an investment property, okay, and the equity in the investment property is also included there. And your, your equity in your primary residence, it could affect, okay, there's an asterisk there for a specific reason, okay, it could affect you, and it's all based on university to university, especially the universities that endorse CSS, okay. If they endorse CSS, you know, then you may have to dig through it to understand if your equity in your primary residence matters. But if you plan properly, what you can do is you can move assets from the includable account category to the excludable account category. Once you do that, it will not have an adverse effect on your child's financial aid, right? So because it's not included in the EFC calculations. First and the foremost is health savings account. Second is retirement assets. The retirement assets will include the tax deferred accounts and tax-free accounts. Okay, so your 401k, Roth 401k, IRA, SEP IRA, solo 401k, Roth IRA, pretty much every retirement account you can think of is excluded from FAFSA calculations. The third one is if you either have an annuity or a pension plan, either from work or a previous employer, or if something that you have created yourself, because it is going to help you through your living expenses in retirement, those cannot be included in calculation of FAFSA. And the last one is 7702 product. 7702 is nothing but a tax code, just like 401k. 401k is employer-sponsored retirement accounts, and 7702 is the tax code for insurance-linked investment accounts. Okay, it can either be an indexed universal life or a whole life, or it can also be a variable universal life account. Okay. So the way they calculate your EFC in FAFSA is based on the most recent tax return, and the majority of the times, okay, the previous 2 years is important, because sometimes they may just look at 2 years ago, and sometimes if your current year is better than the previous year, then you may want to submit your tax forms before and have them processed before you apply for FAFSA. Okay, we'll just go through a quick demo of what the FAFSA process looks like. Okay. So basically, okay. Okay, so it's an interactive questionnaire, and this is not necessarily the FAFSA application that I'm looking at. I'm actually looking at a simulator for deciding or evaluating how much would be the expected family contribution based on your current situation. Okay, you can go in there and then answer all the questions in an interactive mode, and it will help you understand. Okay, it's called the FAFSA forecaster, and it will help you see, based on your current situation, what is the EFC. Okay, and it will also help you simulate some changes. For example, if you want to understand what is the impact of your primary residence, okay, you can include it in one scenario and exclude it in another scenario, and then you'll understand what the real impact is. Okay, so once you do that, okay, you can actually save it, and once you save it, you can actually use it for to support your college education or applications, right? And then there are several other simulators, okay, online. You can use those, okay. And one thing you need to be aware is data inaccuracies result in delays with processing your FAFSA. So make sure that it's there is no data inconsistencies or errors. Okay, and one way to actually reduce a lot of data inaccuracies is to allow the FAFSA form to download your IRS returns. Okay, so it'll at that point it'll actually get a lot of data from IRS, and you don't have to interpret any of the questions there. Double check your information, because it's very important, and the minute there are delays, it can affect your overall financial aid. Most awards are on first come first serve basis, so it's very important to be aware of that. Okay. This is a sample student aid report. Okay, the output of a FAFSA form is what is called as a student aid report, and the key factor here, is this EFC number. In this particular example, the expected family contribution is 42,472, right? So what is important is, if there is no number there, and if it's an asterisk, then it means that there is some errors in your data set. Okay, so you want to just look for that and make sure that there is no errors. And once it's all good, okay, you're good to share it with your financial institutions. And FAFSA free application for federal student aid, that's we have already mentioned that student aid report SAR, we mentioned that. EFC, DSL is the direct Stafford loan estimate. Okay, so that is something that is going to be available in your FAFSA report. Okay, and the last thing is DRN. DRN is your digital reference number, and all that you have to do is provide that to the university, and they can download a lot of information about you. Regarding eligibility for financial aid, okay, this is actually a subject that At the end of my sharing, okay, we're going to have a student by name Kruti Kanduri. She will actually share some of her personal experiences in this area about eligibility for financial aid and so on. So, okay, for those of you who fall into the category of non-citizens, okay, please hang into until the end of the presentation so that you will benefit from Kruti's information. Okay, so this is a quick summary or an example of expected family contribution. Depending on the left-hand side, you have the adjusted gross income, and on the top, you have the includable assets. Okay, so you can peg yourself to based on your current situation. And once you do that, there is an opportunity for you to move to the left or to move up or move down, depending on how you manage your adjusted gross income. As an example, for a family with 2 students pursuing professional degree, which is 8 years each, okay, every $1,000 that you can improve by optimizing your either asset allocation or managing your contributions from your income, every $1,000 improvement will have about a $16,000 overall improvement, because each kid will be in school for 8 years and the 2 kids is $16,000. So it's worth taking time to really find ways and explore ways to really optimize your financial aid. Okay, so this is just a quick summary of some of the federal grants that are available. Okay, as you can see, the federal Pell grant is about $6,300, and then FCIAG is about $4,000. There are a few other federal grants, but most of the time, okay, we may not qualify for them, but at least this is just information. Okay, typically, as you can see, okay, free grants and scholarships normally pay for little of college, and many families don't qualify. Okay, and a grant, typically most grants are about $6,000, and then the scholarships are about $8,000. Okay, and as you can see, 0.3% of students get free rides. Of course, okay, in the audience that we have on this call today, that percentage may be a little bit higher. I fully understand that. Okay, but this is based on the statistics of all students who are in high school, right? Then the next process is called CSS process. Okay, CSS is actually administered by College Board. And there are about 400 universities or colleges that endorse CSS process. It's fairly invasive, but the good thing is all these private universities that endorse CSS, okay, they offer a lot of money because they have huge endowments. Okay, so it's very important to be aware that it's okay to take the time to understand the CSS requirements and fill the profile, because it's going to benefit you. At a high level, okay, what you want to look at is, which category you would fall into. Okay, are you based on merit? Are you based on financial need? Okay, one thing to keep in mind is if there are siblings in college at the same time. Okay, so if there is more than one student in college at the same time, then the outcome is a little bit more favorable when it comes to financial need. Okay. So now let's look at different ways to, or different products to actually save your, save for kids' college education. So all of us have choices, right? So what we have to do is, I'm just going to share real quick, what's the best way to evaluate our choices. First and the foremost, what one wants to do is you look at the tax treatment of the product. Okay, so is it tax now, tax later, or tax free? Tax free products are always better, okay, than tax later or tax no products. Then once you do that, the next thing you want to see is, does it have an impact on financial aid? So for instance, okay, 529s, yes, they do affect your financial aid, okay, but your Roth IRA account, okay, it's a tax-free account and it does not affect your financial aid. Okay. So the next thing is there enough growth in those accounts? So if you have money sitting in a bank account, in today's terms, you can see that the the returns are less than 1% in a typical bank account, right? So you have to just make sure that your growth is optimized. The next thing is risk. Is there any risk in investing there? Okay, yes, you can invest in a 529 account or a 401k account or so on, but there are risks there because when the market goes up, yes, you have growth, but on the same token, if the market crashes, okay, you cannot delay the start of your student school year. The next thing is about access to the money. Can you access the money anytime you want it, or do you have to wait for a timed event? Okay. And the last thing is, of course, we already talked about risk, right? So there are several ways or how families actually save for college, right? And as you can see, the most common way is for people to save in their savings account, checking account, CDs, where the returns are very minimal. The second most common way of saving is through 529 plans, okay? And each one of them, okay, has some benefits and some limitations, okay? My personal choice is the one with the highlight here, insurance with cash value, because it kind of helps to optimize your overall cash. And going back to the previous screen that we looked at, okay, it kind of has the most positive impacts on all the 5 categories that we look at. Okay, 529 accounts, yes, they are counted as parents' assets, so it has an impact of 5.65%. And the custodial accounts and Coverdell accounts are actually counted as student assets, and they have 20% impact. Okay, so just to keep in mind that these impacts can be huge if we are good at saving, so you have to plan accordingly. Okay, there are several benefits of 529 plans. Okay, but as I said earlier, the negative impact is about the impact on financial aid. Okay, so there is actually a concept called grandfather 529 accounts. Okay, so withdrawal from parent-owned accounts, okay, are not considered income on FAFSA. Okay, so they're just considered as a withdrawal. However, if the 529 plan is owned by a grandparent or others, then the withdrawals from those accounts is treated as income in the year in which you use the money. Okay, so one of the solutions to really avoid any adverse impacts on financial aid is to delay using grandfather accounts until the last years. Okay, so that it will not show up on the kids' financial statements. Right? Next thing is about paying for kids' education with our retirement account money. Okay, in the financial advising world, that's considered a big no-no. Okay, yes, many of us have done it and will do it in the future, but it's considered not as beneficial when it comes to funding kids' education. Okay, nearly 2 in 5 Americans are likely to use retirement funds to pay for their children's education. Okay, 0% of the retirement assets are considered federal financial aid formulas while in the account. Okay, and 50% of the withdrawals may count against federal aid as student income. So you have to keep that in mind. And one thing we have to keep in mind is it's very difficult to borrow money for retirement living expenses. It's a lot easier to borrow money for student loans. Okay. Then this is about impacts of COVID on college financial aid processes. Okay, I think Ms. Diane covered it a little bit yesterday. At a high level, okay. This study from JP Morgan says that getting into college may get easier because of COVID impacts. Okay, as you can see, the possible impacts beyond COVID, higher college costs. They are expecting a 58% colleges not likely to freeze or lower tuition prices. Okay. Another concept that many high school students are faced with is about taking a gap year. while there are several benefits of taking a gap year, okay, you also have to keep in mind that you are actually giving up 1 year of income, okay? If assuming that you're going to go to the same program and you're going to be retiring at the same time. Yes, so be aware of the limitations that are specific for each school, because many schools do not carry over some of the awards to following years if it is not structured and agreed to upfront. Okay, student needs to weigh the benefits with what they're giving up. Okay, when it comes to gap years. A quick checklist, again, from a timing point of view, I think there is a lot that they talked about this yesterday in terms of planning properly. Awareness and tracking dates is an extremely important thing, because the minute you miss a date, okay, nobody is going to give us a relief there. Okay, it's very, very, very important. If there's one thing that a student wants to learn from these 2 days of this thing, it's about planning and making sure you maintain a calendar. Okay, so now let's move on to the next topic, which is about financial student loans. Okay, typically there are 2 classifications, subsidized and unsubsidized, and of course there are direct and direct plus loans, where they do expect the parents to co-sign and so on. The interest rates vary anywhere from 2.7% to 5.3%. In addition to this, there is also another category of student loans called private loans. Okay. As I was mentioning earlier, there are other sources for retirement, for college funding, typically your IRA accounts or retirement accounts, life insurance accounts, home equity, and a private loan. Just an important note here, be aware that none of these sources will qualify as a student loan, especially from a student loan forgiveness program. Okay, if there is a forgiveness program that you anticipate exploring, then not any loans that or any withdrawals or loans that you take from these accounts will not qualify for forgiveness programs. The other thing is, it's becoming, we'll talk about it towards the end of this presentation. There is a new concept that is actually gaining a lot of momentum, which is called employer assistance programs. And they are using they are actually paying off employees' student loans to retain them. Okay, so these programs are gaining a lot of traction in the industry, especially larger employers. But if you are actually using money from any of these accounts, then that won't qualify for the employer assistance programs either. So you want to keep that in mind. So the next thing is about college-related tax breaks. There's really not a lot. Okay, one should be aware that you will get about $2,500 credit per student each year. Okay, and the other thing is your student loan interest. You can deduct up to $2,500 each year. So this is about sample. This is a financial aid offer letter from University of Wisconsin. Okay. And pretty much every university shares some or the other form of this. Okay, and in the interest of time, I'm just going to scroll through this rather than go through the demo sites. Okay, another example from Princeton. Okay, so they have a slightly different structure, but at the end of the day, they just list all your total costs, and then they just say, okay, what is the expected family contribution? Whatever is the difference is what they identify as a financial need. Now we apply for it. Some of it you're going to get free money, some of it you're going to borrow. And of course, if you cannot do either of those, then you either take money from your savings accounts or from working on campus. Right? This is from University of Michigan. Okay, they have some case studies there on different scenarios of how the funding is happening. A majority of the examples they give you, okay, make you look, okay, so they kind of demonstrate the scenario where the total cost is near about zero. Okay, and there are several scholarships that the university offers, but you have to keep in mind that state universities don't have as big endowments as private universities do. Okay, another example, there's a handful of examples here that you can go through when we go through when you get the presentation. So another example, Duke, okay, financial institution. Yeah, this is an important one. Okay, so this is an actual information from Princeton University. What they do is they have shared information on what percentage of applicants have they awarded grants. And this is based on the family's household income. Okay, so if you look at it, for a family whose household income is anywhere between, and when they say household income, they're talking about adjusted gross income. Okay, so if the income is between 160 and 180, 100% of the students who are admitted to Princeton and who applied for financial aid received about $40,000. Okay, that's a good portion of the tuition. If the household income is over $250,000, okay, about 27% of the students got close to $20,000 towards financial aid. Okay, so again, most of us don't apply thinking that we will not qualify. Okay, but one thing we should all be aware is there's nothing wrong in applying. The worst case is they'll say, you know what, that they may not offer you anything. Another example, University of Pennsylvania, 220,000 and above household income. Okay, 31% of the applicants got $16,000. This is a list of different, additional websites where you can get a lot of information on. Okay, public domain is a great place. Okay, you can just do any search on anything that you're interested in knowing, and majority of the time you'll find a lot of good information. Okay, student loan debt. Okay, as I was saying earlier, okay, there's nothing wrong with student loan because as you can see, the student loan is one of the debt categories that is actually increasing a lot. More and more families are actually borrowing to support cost of education. But again, keep in mind that this is not all because of not able to pay for their students' finances. Is just because of a concept called good debt. I will be talking about that in a few slides, right? So good debt is when you are able to borrow at a lower rate than the rate of returns you can expect from the market, right? So in that scenarios, okay, people borrow on one side and then you invest on the other side, and then that is how they optimize their overall loan. Okay, we'll talk about that a little bit in a future slide here. As I was mentioning earlier, okay, employers are providing student loan assistance. As you can see, okay, only about 3% of employers were doing that in 2015. By end of 19, it's 8%. Today, it is actually a double-digit number. Okay, so more and more employers are embracing the concept of, paying off student loans. Okay, companies now have a new tax incentive to pay off workers' student loans. So, yeah, okay, so that is from CNBC. Forbes, student loan repayment assistance is becoming a popular benefit to employers. So all this is possible only if we have a student loan. If we don't have a student loan, either because we planned well and we have enough savings in our account and we used our savings accounts to pay off our kids' college, then you won't be eligible for it. HR departments are actually are using this as a incentive to retain employees. Okay, it's pretty much for those of you who are in the HR space, they are always looking for ways to offer the right incentives as a retention bonus, and this is one of them. They typically help pay off your student loans in 3 to 5 years. Some of these benefits are tax beneficial, some of them are not. So you want to understand those better. This is a good list of the top 20, and this list is growing year after year. Okay, and as you can see, some of the big known names, okay, they do offer student loan assistance programs. Now, another concept is forgiveness. Okay, and this is something that more and more people who are borrowing student loans are anticipating to get the benefit of. Okay, current student loan debt, okay, is about $1.7 trillion. Biden just canceled 1.5 million, or President Biden, 1.5 billion student loan debt. So far, it doesn't mean that forgiveness will come soon. Student loan forgiveness releases you from the obligation to repay part or all of your federal loan debt. Okay, basically most of these programs, okay, they will not, they may or may not impact your private loans, but any federal loan debt, okay, that's a big opportunity. Okay, there are so many websites out there which really share information about student loan forgiveness programs. Okay, and a complete list of forgiveness programs and so on. Okay, so now let's look at the last concept that I was referring to earlier: good debt versus bad debt. Okay, student loan interest rates are anywhere between 2.5 or 2.75 to 7%. Okay, average is about 5.5%. Student loan is considered a good debt if the savings is excluded from, if the savings that you have for college education is in excluded accounts. At that point, you will, okay, what will happen is you will get a higher, you can manage your accounts in such a way that you get higher rate of returns on the student loan accounts. Right? So I think I shared this earlier, okay, where if you just follow the traditional path of saving for college and then using those savings from a regular brokerage account or a savings account, okay, you will be contributing in this particular student profile. We are looking at a 10-year-old kid who wants to pursue medical school. Okay, so if they're 10 today, very likely they're going to start college in 2029. First 4 years of school is going to cost about $323, and then anticipated cost for med school is about $392. Between the two is about $750,000. Okay, but if you save about close to $28,500 a year, then you will be contributing a total of $450,000 at a rate of return of 8%. You can expect your account to grow at a decent pace, and because you have money sitting in your brokerage accounts or in your savings accounts, that will actually trigger a reduction of any financial aid opportunities. So the opportunity cost there is about $80,000. So between the two, okay, in a traditional scenario, the cost of education in this case is about $540,000. Okay, so as an example, this is plan B. Okay, so what you do is you save the same $457,000 into excluded accounts. Okay, as I stated in one of the previous slides, okay, it can be a HSA account or a retirement account, annuity, or a 770. So when your money is parked into those excludable accounts, most of these accounts will offer a decent return of about 9 to 11%. Okay, and the money will grow there. Okay, and when time comes for the child to go to, or for the student to go to college, okay, what you do is you take as much student loan as possible. And student loans average interest rate is about 5.5%. What you do is once their repayment schedule starts, you can start using money from the sheltered accounts to pay off their student loan. So net impact in this particular case is, if you follow the process and you take the 10 years that is allowed to pay off your student loan, you'll end up having $325,000 left in your sheltered account. So what does that do? That gives you a net cost of $130,000 versus a potential saving of about $400,000 if you plan properly. Okay, so the model assumes that you are saving in excludable accounts, right? So additionally, student loan forgiveness is an option, okay, because you are carrying a student loan, and any money that is in a student loan account, okay, it can be offset through some employer student loan assistance program. So you don't have the benefit if you save for your kids' education and you use for that. So in summary, okay, there are several ways to actually model this, okay, depending on each individual student situation. Okay, and when I have a reference to sheltered accounts, and okay, I'm implying the excludable accounts, okay, that I was mentioning earlier. And the process needs a couple things. One is you need to be aware of how to do it right. The second thing is you have to plan for it up front. And of course, seamless execution is very important, and that comes with the knowledge you may have. Okay. But the effort that you put into any of these models of, optimizing your financial aid definitely pays off. Okay. There are several ways to model your student situation. That is where I typically can help if you are interested. So in summary, okay, take action, the earlier the better. Understand your options, save smart and invest wisely, reallocate assets. Okay, you understand what is your expected family contribution and minimize it by moving your assets from includable to excludable. And professional help always helps. Okay. So, so if you wish to receive a document with all the hyperlinks that are that I referenced in today's presentation, okay, please send me a request to Venkat ffpfrankpeter@gmail.com and include in that your first name, last name, and the state you live in. And what I'll do is I can share a document with all the links, okay, in the relevant categories. Okay. The next thing is we have a guest speaker. Her name is Kruti Kanduri. I'm going to, of course, I'll continue to share my screen and I'll allow her to share her experience, especially from the eligibility criteria for financial aid. Okay. Kruti, are you on the call?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to mute myself and you can take it from here, okay?
Okay. Hi, I'm Kruti. I am a sophomore at UT Dallas, and I applied as an international student to college. So I have a little bit of personal experience applying as an international student and all the problems that can come with eligibility requirements for scholarships. To start off with, there is a few fine print or vocab terms that I recommend any international student learn or be aware of when they're applying. First off, need blind. Many private schools, and many state schools as well, they offer admission and they usually say that they're need blind. But what a lot of people don't realize is that this need blind scenario is very conditional. So need blind means that this university will accept you without looking at your financial aid requirements. And usually for any US citizen or US permanent resident, that's exactly what happens. For international students, more often than not, the need blind requirement is no longer applicable. And we usually have to end up applying like not need blind, which means that universities will be able to see how much your EFC is or how much your family can contribute to the tuition while you're applying, which makes admission quite competitive for international applicants. And another thing that I think international students frequently miss out on is knowing the difference between US resident and a state resident. So I have a list right here of states that offer in-state tuition to international students who graduated from high schools in those states. So for example, the state that I live in, Texas, even though I am an international student, because I graduated from a Texas high school, I was able to qualify for in-state tuition because I was a Texas resident, which took precedence over being a US resident. And that can make all the difference when you're applying to colleges and then also qualifying for certain scholarships and certain financial aid within these states. And then the difference between full tuition versus a full ride. This is more of a conversational term when people talk about scholarships. Full tuition means that you obviously cover all of tuition, and a full ride means you're covering housing and extra fees as well when you are applying to college. And then another thing that I'd like to think, just briefly touch on for admission's sake is acceptance rates are usually not applicable towards international students. Any acceptance rate you see, for example, a 45% acceptance rate, state school like University of Maryland or University of Texas are absolutely not the same statistics for international students. The acceptance rate is going to be way, way lower. It's going to be closer to 10 to 7% mostly. And then the importance of reaching out to your admissions officers and counselors at the college themselves, especially for international students, can again make a huge difference when it comes to learning information about certain scholarships that you might be eligible for, or certain exceptions that the university can make for your specific case. And of course, department specific scholarships, which may or may not be less competitive for students to receive when they apply to certain majors. So on the scholarship side, Mr. Rankin already covered this, but the CSS profile is going to be one of the most important resources for an international student. While when you're not a US permanent resident, you are not eligible to fill out the FAFSA, which means you're not eligible for a lot of the government federal aid. The CSS profile is what's going to be required pretty much of any international student when they apply to college, because it gives you an opportunity to provide your EFC and your family contribution to these colleges without necessarily applying for that federal aid. It still is it's the primary resource for financial aid for international students. And then I also have some websites listed out that can specifically help with international student scholarships, just because the requirements needed for them are usually very different from US permanent resident scholarships. The main things that I would consider when applying as an international student would be, first of all, please don't underestimate the help of college counseling or third-party negotiators, especially those who have experience with international students. What a lot of people don't realize is that these you can actually renegotiate the amount of financial aid you get from a college. So for example, in that financial aid offer letter, if you are receiving, let's say $30,000 from the college, you actually have the ability to ask for more based on your circumstances or based on your case. And that's what a lot of people don't know. And these third-party negotiators or college counselors are usually people who have lots of experience dealing with them. So I would say really do your research and see if it's something that's an option and affordable for you. I would 100% recommend it. And also another thing I would consider is that a lot of times people just look up oh, what are the best universities for international students, and you get very prestigious, very high-end Ivy Leagues, very prestigious private schools. And while they're very pleasant for international students, because when you get in, they can cover a lot of your tuition, a lot of the times it's incredibly difficult to actually receive admission into the colleges themselves. The main thing that I would recommend is take a look at your long-term grad school career plans. If you're planning on going into a graduate school, then there's no point in dedicating yourself to a $60K per year private school where you maybe have to pay $20K a year with scholarship versus a public school in-state that you qualify for in-state tuition that you might only have to pay $11 to $20K a year to get an undergrad at a strong public school. And international students also can apply for work-study programs within their university. A lot of the times an F1 visa can be difficult to receive that opportunity with, but many universities usually find loopholes or ways around so that these students can qualify for work-study. And that can contribute up to $2,000 per month as far as the amount of scholarship that they can give you at different universities. And then the main thing that I think any international student applying to a university in the US should be focusing on is getting a merit scholarship. Financial aid is something that is incredibly difficult for international students to get just because of their lack of options and their lack of access to the federal government aid. So merit scholarships that especially don't look at your residency are incredibly useful. That's how I got many of my scholarships for college. And I think that's where the bulk of money comes from as well for international students. Having a high GPA or a high percentage in your graduating class is incredibly important. Having a high SAT, ACT score, even though universities are rolling back the requirements for standardized testing, a lot of universities are saying that you don't necessarily need it to apply anymore. That does not mean it's any less important for merit scholarships. It's incredibly important that you still focus on getting a high SAT and high ACT scores. And of course, excellence in extracurriculars can make all the difference. Many third-party scholarships are from usually extracurricular organizations that have national chapters. I think the main thing that I also want to focus and touch on is the fact that these certain states in the US can offer you in-state tuition as long as you graduate from a high school in that state. Texas, as long as you've lived in Texas for more than 12 months and are graduating from a Texas high school, you get in-state tuition at almost every public school and and a few private schools as well. And the same thing applies to Maryland, New Jersey, New Mexico. These are all states that take into consideration the fact that you have paid taxes in state, and that you have like maybe if you own land or if you own assets within that state, they take that into consideration and can offer you in-state tuition. And then there's also state-based aid, which a lot of people forget about when talking about like federal aid. In these states, even if you don't qualify for FAFSA or the government federal aid program, you very much can qualify for state-based aid, which is the state government's like aid program for college. And I think those are like very important things. And I was told to keep it short, so that's all I can give you. If you have any more questions specifically about the international student application process or financial aid process, please don't hesitate to email me with any questions you have. My email is on the bottom of the screen right there, and I will hand it off to the organizers once again.
Excellent, Kruti. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all the valuable information here. Okay, with that, okay, if you can stay on, okay, if any of the attendees have any questions, it'll help us answer the question between the two of us, right? So
Yes, 1 second, I just want to clarify one thing. And when Kruti was mentioning international student, she is mentioning the students who are already here in US but don't have green card holders, don't have green card or US citizenship. Is that right, Kruti?
Yes, specifically talking about non-US permanent residents and non-US citizens.
Yeah, exactly. That applies to many parents who are still on some kind of visa status and their children don't have the green card or US citizenship.
correct.
Cool.
Okay, so Narayan Garu, will you be steering any questions or?
Yes, I'll be, so first of all, in case if you guys have any questions, please go ahead and post it in the Q&A, and we will try to answer as many as possible. We have parents here who went through this process, and we have Kruti, who is a student who just went through that process, and a professional. So you can ask any of those questions. First one, what is a protected amount?
Not too sure in what context you're asking what is a protected amount.
Maybe
we may need a little bit more
elaboration, right, on that?
Yeah, we need a little bit context, or at least a slide that I was referring to, because I'm assuming it is from a slide. So
yeah,
okay.
Maybe one thing I can think of, like, when a student is working, for example, up to first 65,000 or so, they don't take that into consideration as income. Anything beyond 65,000 income.
Oh, no, it's not 65,000, 6,500.
Yeah, sorry, 6,500.
Correct.
Yeah, 6,500. So maybe is that what he is asking, the protected amount? I don't know. Maybe you need to elaborate.
Yeah, we need a little bit more clarification on what the question is about. So
okay.
Okay.
The next question is, if parents doesn't have house or assets in the US but has asset in India, which is declared as rental income in US returns, is that to be declared in EFC, and is it considered when financial aid application is considered?
See, the thing is, especially Indian assets kind of fall into a gray space, right? It depends on if you're declaring your income from your Indian assets in your US tax returns. If that is the case, then yes, those would fall into investment properties, and they will impact your expected family contribution.
You will be submitting your tax returns. So anything that you're putting information in the tax return, I guess, you have to declare that in your financial aid application also.
Correct.
Are custodial accounts not on student name but outside the country, and funds in those, are they part of EFC calculation? How will they impact? Any suggestions we have to manage those? Parents are not US green card holders or citizen kid here.
Yes, those will be included if you are including them in your tax returns. Okay, and there is also for people who own assets outside the country, there is some limit like over $10,000. If it is over $10,000 and it's not in real estate, then you have to declare those. Okay, and there is a standard tax, your tax professional can help you there. Okay, there are standard forms that you have to file annually along with your tax returns.
Okay, the previous question, what is protected amount? He was referring to the EFC side.
Okay, so let me go back to that slide and then see. Because there is a lot of information on that one slide, I know.
I mean, is it the income that he's talking about that is some protected, or let me see if he has.
So this is the EFC slide. Okay, and okay, that's the protected amount. I think Narayan Garu, you were right. Okay, so the protected amount is 6,970. That means the first 6,970 that a student collects as income, okay, will not be impacting the EFC. So if let us say a student works over the summer and collects $10,000, in that case, only $3,000 will impact the EFC. So it's like a standard deduction, right?
Yeah. And similarly, they have for parents' income also, right?
Yeah, basically the parent income is the adjusted gross income from your tax returns, and the adjusted gross income takes into account standard deductions.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is typically a lot lower than your actual gross income.
Okay. If a student accepts to go to an in-state college for the first year, but if their parents move to a different state due to work, would they be considered an out-of-state or in-state for the remaining years in college? Will the tuition change?
Yeah, typically from what I have seen, okay, whatever you get admitted at will pretty much hold. Okay, there may be some situations where it can be the other way around. You join as an out-of-state and then you meet some certain requirements and you become in-state. But if you start as in-state, okay, I have not come across any situations where that changes to out-of-state. Okay, I don't believe that happens.
Okay. Next question is, should we engage with a financial planner or advisor in tandem with college admissions counselor to understand even what institutions to even apply for a financial fit?
See, the thing is, these are two different aspects, right? A financial advisor can help you optimize and navigate the process of improving your financial aid, okay? When it comes to applying for financial aid, okay, it's most of the time that is under the guise of people who help with college admission process. Some college admission counselors will help purely with the admission process and nothing to do with the financial aid. There are some others who can help you there also. Okay, so it all depends on who you're working with as a admission counselor.
Yeah, I guess, if you go through that net price calculator for each university, it will tell you, what your cost of attendance for that university will be after they give you whatever financial aid. So you can play with those numbers. You can just change few things here and there and see how your financial aid impacts. And you just Google university name net price calculator, and every university will have that.
Correct.
If I didn't take any AP classes, would that affect me in any way applying for college? No.
I would say that, probably Kruti can answer that, okay, or some of the panelists from yesterday could answer that better. But net impact is, if you have not taken, again, taking AP classes does not guarantee college credit either, right? There are certain requirements. Okay, you should have got a certain grade that should actually fit into your overall curriculum stream that you're picking and so on and so forth. But I know several students who actually have got pretty much, a full semester, sometimes even more than a semester, 1.5 semesters worth of credits. And, they finish their college degree within 3 years, right? So those are all scenarios that are possible. But, if you don't have any AP credits, it all depends. There is a lot more than just AP credits that affects a college's decision to offer admission.
If I could add one thing to that, I would say it depends also on how many your school offers. If you're going to a high school that doesn't really offer any AP credits, then it seems a lot more understandable and acceptable that you don't take very many AP classes at all. However, if you're going to a school that offers a very large amount of AP classes and you don't take them, maybe to preserve your GPA because it's easier to get a 4.0 with regular classes, that will show. And you have to think about it that in the end, students who prefer to challenge themselves and are going to work a little harder for challenging courses will definitely have a better appeal to their application versus students who took the easy way out, in a way, if that makes sense. So that's just what I wanted to add.
Yeah, makes sense. And if somebody's high school program is a IB program, okay, again, there is an equivalent of an AP class there, but you won't have any AP classes through an IB program, right? So that's the other thing you want to keep in mind.
Okay, the next question is it better option to continue as a H4 dependent visa or continue to F1 student visa for college?
I don't have enough experience in that area, okay, but I would say there should not be any impact because either way, okay, you are an international student at that time.
Yes, I would say that it also depends on the university's program. Some universities offer their international student program is specifically for a certain type of visa, for F1 visa. So sometimes universities may require you to actually switch from H4 to F1. And that's the only time where I think that would make a difference.
One thing I can think of is, like if you need student employment or something like that, probably if you are not getting an EAD on H4, you need to be on F1 to be able to work or some paid internships and things like that. Okay, could you please share the slides? As Mr. Venkat said, he can't share the slides, but at some time, we will be sharing this presentation, recorded presentation. If both siblings are going to apply for college, maybe same or different, what is your suggestion to manage EFC? Can you share some thoughts how to optimize DFN?
Yeah, the EFC questionnaire actually takes that into consideration. Okay, it does ask if you have siblings who are going to attend school at about the same time that you are going to be in school. And in those cases, the EFC is actually reduced quite a bit. Okay, it's not half, but it is definitely reduced quite a bit. So from that point of view, okay, if you have siblings who are going to be in school at the same time, it does help.
I think if I remember correctly, if you have 2 kids, for example, let's say they will reduce the EFC to 60%.
Yeah, there is some math that happens behind the screen, Narayan Garu.
That's right.
So there's no fixed formula or a published number of kids in college versus how much you can get. Especially if you think about it, right? When a student is going to a professional program, you're talking about being on rolls for 8 years. So it's sometimes you can have more than 2 siblings in the school university at the same time. So there is a lot of analysis or back-end calculation that happen. Okay, but you can definitely model that in your EFC calculators.
In your net price calculator,
Correct,
you can
correct.
model that, that will tell you. But definitely it helps having multiple kids in the college at the same time will help you in your expected family contribution.
Right.
So you put everything same and just put a number of kids attending 1 and change that to 2 and see how your expected family contribution changes. Okay, what is protected amount for parents?
Protected amount for parents, single income house, is it married filing jointly? If it is married filing jointly, it's about $24,000 or so. Whatever is the standard deduction, right? Your standard deduction is your protected income first.
Okay.
So just look at your most recent 1040 or your tax returns, and the line that says adjusted gross income is what impacts your FAFSA.
So you will be submitting the modified adjusted gross income. So it's all, that part is already taken care. Whatever is protected, when you're filing for the taxes, your Maggie is after taking care of all those things. So that's what you would be submitting to FAFSA.
Right.
Yeah. So to clarify, I get a feeling it's better contribute fully to 401k, IRA, other retirement accounts, HSA accounts first. If I already do that, then should I think about 529 or should I contribute in my individual investment account? Is one preferred over the other?
Like I think what's her name? Diane was saying yesterday. Okay, and the best answer is depends. Okay, so you have to go through what is called as a personal financial strategy and then look at what are all the different options and scenarios, and that will help you make that decision. But it's very difficult to say which one is better in a specific situation, because it also depends on what is their current tax bracket that they're in, marginal tax bracket, okay, and how they're funding their other accounts. Okay, basically the thing is, while funding your 401k account to the max will help you reduce your income, it is actually going to increase your tax liability in the future. Okay, so you want to keep that in mind. So there are several things, and I don't want to pretend to be a tax consultant here, but you have to just look at several things before you can decide on whether you want to fund a brokerage account or a 529 account. But in my view, 529 accounts have lost their charm significantly because the investments are in mutual funds. There is a lot of fees that are applied to 529 accounts, and it's counted in your includable assets. So the net impact is, yes, the growth in your 529 is tax-free, but that's the only benefit. And if you don't end up using that money, which happens from time to time, okay, of course, you don't pay the penalty, but you still pay taxes on that. So from that point of view, look for tax-free products and look for hedged products. So that will really help you with the 5 factors that impact your decision, okay? Taxes, growth, access, and then, so as I said, those 5 factors do help. So look at it from all the 5 factors, because it may help you in one area, but it may hurt you in the others.
Okay, any recordings available from yesterday? I missed it. Okay, as I mentioned, anybody who registered for this program, they will have access to the recordings at some point of time. Our VIBA youth interns are in the process of building a site where we will be adding all the recordings from the last 4 or 5 years of this program. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but you will have access to it. And next question, is the tuition paid to colleges negotiable? are there organizations which can help with this? How do high income parents approach to college vary?
Well, again, the cost of education typically is not negotiable, but the financial aid that they can offer you is. So you have to reach out to the financial office and then financial aid office and present your case and see if they can give you some waivers or something like that.
As I said, if you look at your net price calculator, and after looking at that, if you're not getting anything, then probably your best option would be looking into the merit scholarships.
And I think that question might be because of something I said. I said that the financial aid or like merit aid you might receive from a university can be negotiable. And I think that's what they're talking about. So the aid you receive can be negotiable, but tuition is not.
And one more thing, let's say when you apply for a college and you get a aid, and during the college year, if your situation changes, you can always approach them. They do give more aid in case if your situation changes.
Right.
As an international student, will they pay different tuition costs compared to US citizen?
It depends. If it is a state school, there can be a difference. Okay, but if it's a private school, typically it's the same cost for everybody.
Yeah. There may be a few things like insurance and etc. Health insurance, they will force all international students to buy. But whereas if you are a US citizen or permanent resident, and if you have insurance, they will waive that.
Correct.
What do the application process to different scholarships look like?
Every scholarship you have to apply separately, and most of them are on whoever is the provider, they have a standard process, and majority of them will expect you to support your scholarship application with a PSAT score. Okay, so there is very few that will offer a scholarship without a PSAT score. Right.
Yeah, I have some experience in that. So there are scholarships which you have to specifically apply in addition to your college application. And there are some universities which automatically grant you scholarships just looking at your Common App application. So it differs from scholarship to scholarship. That's why you need to go to each university wherever you are planning to apply and look at the requirements of the scholarships. And especially you want to stick to their dates, because the application submission dates are different for scholarships compared to the admissions. So this is where I think the parents can really help their kids. The summer before summer before you apply, you sit down, what universities that you plan to apply and what are the deadlines for each scholarship, and keep that in an Excel sheet. That's how you can really help your children. Because I know many parents, many kids who were capable of getting scholarships, but they missed the deadline to apply. So this is where I guess you can be on top of it.
Yeah, very good information, Andy. Yeah, that's important. I think yesterday they stressed a lot about that.
Yeah, yesterday one of the panelists, she was definitely would have gotten the scholarship, but she simply missed it.
Yep.
Yeah. Based on family income and assets, most private colleges are showing NPC more than 65K. Is there a way to reduce EFC?
Yes. If you plan properly and reduce your assets, as I was showing on one of the slides, okay. First thing is you calculate based on your current situation where you are, and then start making improvements, okay. try to reduce your includable assets and try to manage your adjusted gross income. Okay, and if you do that, as I said, okay, for every student who plans on going for a professional program, every $1,000 improvement will result in an $8,000 overall EFC, right? Like it's $1,000 a year. So for 8 years, you're talking about $8,000 benefit, right? So it is important that you understand the 4 contributors, and most of us, once we know what the inputs are and what is the math behind it, we get clever, right? So I think that was the whole purpose of sharing that in terms of what is the math behind the EFC calculation.
Yeah. For example, some universities, they don't consider equity in the primary home. So it is again changes from university to university. So if you have money and if you want to pay off your home equity, you don't have to show that as an asset for you. So that will increase your chances of getting financial aid.
Right.
Applying secured credit card or building credit history for child or putting money in child savings account, will that help or will it be negative when calculating EFC DFN?
It's a negative impact because 20% of the child's assets versus 5.6% of parent assets. So, the pecking order would be excludable accounts first. The next thing is parents' assets and then child assets.
So this is very important point, that you mentioned, like let's say you have $10,000. If that asset is in the parent name, only 5.6% is counted. But whereas if it is in the child's name, 50% is counted.
20.
20%. Yeah, I mean, the income is 50%. Yes.
Yeah.
How soon shall you start financial planning? I mean, moving assets around before applying for the financial aid. Since you mentioned that they typically look at tax returns for the last 2-3 years.
Yeah, they look at 2 years tax returns. Okay, and it depends on how you are trying to move from one to the other, because most of your includable asset categories have annual contribution limits. Okay, with the exception of annuities, they have annual contribution limits. So let us say you have $300,000 sitting in a savings account. It's not going to be easy to move that all into excludable buckets right away. Okay, so you have to plan. The earlier you can plan, the better it is. It will give you a little bit more options and time to understand what your options are. So starting earlier is better, but at a minimum, it has to be 2 tax years prior to your child's start of attending college.
So for example, if your child is attending college in 2021, you will be applying the financial aid with 2019 tax return.
19 or 20, one of them.
Yes.
But both are important.
Both are, yeah. Is prepaid state student plan worth consideration, like Texas guaranteed tuition plan?
Yeah, prepaids are considered 529 accounts, right? So for the purpose of calculating EFC, prepaid are included in your 529s.
Okay. Would paying off house versus keeping money in the saving account affect EFC calculation favorably?
It depends. If you are not applying for, if you're applying only for FAFSA, it'll help you. If you are applying for CSS, it may or may not. So because some universities look at equity in your primary residence as also an asset, and it's all university based. It just because you're applying CSS does not mean that there is an impact, right? So you have to better understand what the university's requirements are.
Yeah, this is where you definitely want to ask the university financial aid officer. Some universities, they cap it, twice your annual income. Some university, they don't care even if you have $1 million house. That's why it changes from university to university.
Correct.
Can you show the slide includable and excludable assets?
Yeah, sure. Give me 1 minute. I'll go there. Okay.
Okay, it looks like there are not any more questions. So finally, I want to thank everyone from Viva, Mr. Venkat and Kruti. We really appreciate your time. And please try considering supporting Viva. I'm posting that link in the chat. We have a big event coming up. It's called Dream Mile. Usually 4,000 to 5,000 people participate in it. So either you can donate or you can participate in this event. So please visit dreammile.org, or you can go to viva.org donate. So again, thank you very much, everyone. I really appreciate all of you, coming and taking advantage of this program. Venkat Garu, do you have anything to say?
No, nothing else. I hope people who attended got some value out of the presentation and the information we shared here. Feel free to reach out to, either to Kruti or to myself based if you have any questions. Okay, and, please be aware that, at least in my case, I can tell you that I don't monetize on this information. So whatever I do here is just to help the society with just awareness, that's all. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all.